going to make pastırma, which is a salted, cured, spiced meat. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks for it to come to completion, and I'm hoping to have this finished by the time my parents come to visit, so I'm starting it now. For this, we start out with some meat. This is an eye of round, so it's, kind of the tougher cousin of the sirloin. It's got fat on it. We need to trim that off. I want to keep track of kind of what the total production cost is. Online, you can buy this, and it's not particularly reasonable because it's not generally produced in the U.S. But here we're going to give it a go. So this is a 6.16 pound roast for $5.99 a pound. So the total is $36.90. And the first phase is basically to trim this down, cut it into an appropriate size, which is about maybe 10 centimeter by 5 or 6 centimeter, and then heavily salted and let it sit salted to remove the water and blood. We also are going to press it between two pans, and every day subtract the fluids that come out. So let's begin. Just trim this. We also want to cut off the silver skin. Now it's all trimmed. We've lost a considerable amount of fat and surface, but I'm going to cut this in half now and hopefully shape this into two reasonable size shaped pastırma. All these loaves. Pastırma meats. Okay, there we go. This one's a little bit thicker than the other, not a lot. Should be okay still. Pretty uniform thickness for both all the way across. So now we're going to salt these. Before I do that though, I want to weigh to see exactly what we've lost. After losing blood in the package and losing trim, we are at, the small one is at 2.01, so 2 pounds, 1.5 ounces. 2 pounds, 1.5 ounces. The other one is at 2 pounds, 8.2 ounces. So the net is basically 4 pounds, 10 ounces. Basically, we are going to dry these out to the point that they become actually firm and stiff in the fridge. Or if we had a cellar or something, we could do it like that. But right now, just all the salt in place is going to be good. Now I'm trying to be a little bit concerned about the height differences, but we'll see. For now, I'm going to use this cutting board as my pressure board. And I'm going to use these bricks, which I've been using in my barbecue outside as the weight. And we're going to put this in the fridge, and every morning we're going to come in here and take out the liquids that have sat there overnight, and hopefully within a week or two this is going to start looking like pastırma. It's been 24 hours. Let's look in on the pressed meat to see how it's doing. So you can see there's actually a considerable amount of fluid. So let's take and pour that off. So that's a lot of fluid. It makes a good pressing. We need a little more pressing in that corner where we've got the hole, but let's take this out and clean up the fluid. In this first round, we've roughly lost, you subtract the salt, we've roughly lost around 1 cup of blood and water. For the next 24 hours, I'm going to leave the salt as it is, and then simply resalt the exterior of the meat and let it go again. At some point, I'm going to start drying the tray completely to try to improve the rate of bloodletting. So now let's wait and see how this ages. This is the beginning of day 2. This is now 36 hours since the salting. There's a little bit of liquid in the bottom, but not a lot. I'm going to let this sit for another 12 hours and then take this out and
wipe it down and put it back in the fridge. It's been 84 hours now, and we've gotten some more liquid out. Apparently, the board gets a little warped as you let it sit against the wet meat, so I'll swap out the board. Meat's looking very good. It's much firmer, much thinner. So what we're gonna do is clean off the pan and put it back and resalt, and then put it back in the fridge for another couple days. But we're getting really close here to being done. Many of the online recipes call for 3 days of salting, and then this is getting pretty close to that limit. Measuring the water and blood and subtracting the volume of salt, it looks like we have about maybe 3/8 of a cup of fluids that came out the past 2 days. So now the meat's dry, and I'm going to resalt and resubmit this to the refrigerator. I know this seems like a lot of salt, but if you think about it, we're both drying the meat and preserving it. And it seems as though for a reagent which is so cheap, you know, the whole box is basically $2.50 or $2.40 something, it seems worth applying it. Okay. So I'm going to put a fresh board down. And now I'm going to reapply our 16 pounds of bricks. Each one of these bricks weighs a little over 4 pounds. Now back in the refrigerator. It's now been 5 days since we started the salting, and this looks pretty much done. There's no significant amounts of blood and water still coming out of the meat. I changed the salt, of course, yesterday, but everything seems dry, so we're going to take now and rinse the meat off, and then we're going to let it soak for 2-3 hours in clean water to try to get the salt out of the pores as best we can. So it's been about an hour and a half of rinsing. I took them out and dried them off well. The texture you can see is a little bit spongy on the surface, still very, very firm. So we're going to take these and we're going to thread string through them and hang them to dry further. Let's find a thick place in the meat to put a hole. I've now hung these in a spare bedroom I have with the window open to get some ventilation. And that should hold them for the next period, which I assume is going to be anywhere from 5 days to 2 weeks. We'll look in on them. We've now been drying for about 24 hours, and the meat is becoming a little bit leathery, still soft to the touch, but also become considerably darker if you compare this color to the kind of washed out color we had before. And this is actually starting to look a lot more like what the interior is anticipated to look like. So it's been 3 days, and I think the air drying is almost done. It's still, slightly soft to compress. So you can see kind of salt coming out on the surfaces, but it's firm, and we're ready to put the coating. For the spice coating, we've got paprika, cumin, cayenne pepper, this fenugreek, which I had to order, and some garlic. And this fenugreek has got little seeds. They're kind of a little funky flavored. I can't really describe what they taste like, but they need to be ground into a powder. The surface coating, chemin, this is made up of a little over half a cup of paprika. So it's half a cup and a couple tablespoons. About half a cup of the fenugreek, 1 teaspoon of cumin, about 1/8 of a cup of super hot cayenne peppers, and then garlic. And I put about half a cup of garlic cloves, and then threw those into the food processor with the spices, and I think I put around 3/4 cup in order to get the coating to something that can be applied like a paste. So the meat, after 3 days of drying and about a week of being pressed in salt, is now down to 3 pounds and about 1.5 ounces. So we lost about a pound of liquid. So now we're going to take and smear the paste on the surface and smooth it out with water, and we should be all set to let it sit and age for the next couple of weeks. After much fussing, the coating got put on about as smooth as it could be. One thing that I learned was that a little more water was needed in order to get the right consistency. So it really does need to be about like mashed potatoes, maybe a little bit smoother. And the second thing is that after you get that consistency, you have to let the spices sit, and they will absorb water, and that's when they become sticky. If you take and you put the freshly made compact on the meat, it does not stick intrinsically. It really does slide right off and makes processing a real bear. So with that, we're gonna let this sit for another, 2-3 weeks and see what comes out. So it's been 14 days since I hung these two. And I'd love to say that I'll be mature and let them sit another week or two and age, but I can't because they smell so good. They smell very strong. In fact, like crazy strong. So if you're reluctant to have something which is overwhelming in your house, don't make these. Right now, they're firm. Outside is hard. Together, they weigh 2.9 pounds,
which is down from the 6.16 pounds we started with. And ultimately, our meat cost $36.9. And if you throw in the cost of a $3 box of salt and some fenugreek, we're looking at about $40. So ultimately, this comes down to about $13.8 or about $14 a pound. Not unreasonable. So tomorrow we're going to have a birthday celebration in my group meeting, and I've made cake, and with the cake we're going to have some of this. So let's see what this is like. Very hard. That's one thing I can tell you. Extremely hard. Holy smokes. I have no idea how a person cuts this thing. I guess you just kind of rock into it. Then let's cut through. Okay. So all along the surface here, you see we've got little cracks, so I didn't get the surface coating exactly perfect. In many of these we have little white spots like this, and I think that is probably salt. There was a lot of salt as I dried it before putting the coating on, so some of the coating falls off. Again, this is the salt, and this is what the interior looks like, which is picture perfect. Smells good. Let's try getting a slice off. Oh, Jiminy Christmas, that is a stiff piece. Okay, and all the coating broke off. Let's try it without the coating first. Wow. Salty. Lots of garlic. Crazy amount of garlic. You can taste the fenugreek, but the fenugreek is just kind of a bitter aromatic. You can taste the sweet paprika. Oh. I think I need a way to shave this to make it thinner. Maybe I can borrow a meat cutter from someone. Let's try the coating. So the interior, whoa, whew, that coating is strong. Not bad, just surprisingly potent. Interior, you see, a little bit flexible. The outer layer is dried. This could go well with eggs, or so some of the recipes say. So let's try coating with the meat. Wow. That is just amazingly strong, the coating. Let's try cutting another slice. See if I can get a little thinner. Okay, there we go. That's a little thinner. If I compare this to pictures on the internet, I think that I made my coating a little bit too thin. So I probably needed to maybe double the amount of coating recipe I put together. I cut this, and it's transparent. Let's try this. Wow. That's very good. Okay. So making this. One thing, the loss is relatively high. If you can buy your eye round pre-trimmed at a reasonable rate, or at least without all the blood in the bag, that would be an advantage to save money. In the production, it takes about 3 to 4 days of salt and pressure, so you don't necessarily have to take it and clean it every time the way I did. This was more of a test run. Once I finish eating these 2 pounds and I make more, I will not necessarily let it have all the intermediate steps. This is very salty, which I think is not wrong. With all the salt on the surface, though, I think that perhaps letting the meat rinse for more than an hour or two would be good. Some of the online recipes call for soaking overnight. I think at least changing the water a couple times would probably be beneficial to reduce the saltiness. Although the saltiness is good, but it does significantly cut into your capacity to eat a lot of it. The texture also cuts into your capacity to eat. When making the fenugreek, or the coating, I think I have the right ratio of the spices, but I think that I needed more water. What I found was that as I was applying the coating, it would just slip off. And the real problem here, I think, was that it wasn't wet enough. So what I would do the second time would be to put more water in and get it a little bit closer to a mashed potato as opposed to a toothpaste consistency. And then after I put the water in, I would let it sit for about maybe 10-15 minutes and let the ground spices absorb the water. I found that as time went on, it was easier to manage the paste that I was spreading on. And that's because I think that the spices were fully hydrated. The drying process from pressed to dry took about 2-3 days. And I was doing this in a spare bedroom, and I had the window open, so it must have been around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I was concerned about spoilage, and I think in hindsight that really is not an issue. But it did take about another 2-3 days. And 2 weeks, you wind up with a very good final product. It may age more, I don't know, but I can say that for what this is, it is really very nice. I might try to make a thicker piece next time. The final dimension of this is somewhere between maybe 8 centimeters by 1.5 at the thickest. Looking at these coatings also, this one does not have cracks on, but it does on this side. There were instructions online for wetting your hands and smoothing out the surface, and I just kind of reached the point where I was so frustrated with getting the coating on that I was not going to risk rubbing it off with wet palms. I think if I had a thicker coating, it also might stick a little bit better than this. But tomorrow we'll see how this goes with birthday cake. Oh yeah. And get other people's inputs as well. Anyway, thank you for watching, and good luck if you're making pastırma. So it's been about a week, and I've gone through the better half of the one of these, and I think we should have a little bit of a follow-up. First off, the recipe is exactly right in terms of the flavoring and the initial steps. As this is aged, it's become much firmer, and if you look at the it's extremely hard, and I think that this has to do with the fact that the surface coating is not very well adhered, and it keeps coming off. It also cracks all through the surface, and it's extremely thin. The consequence of that is that the meat's very hard, and cutting thin slices is challenging. You typically either get thick pieces or just kind of little shavings that come off, and you also wind up with big chunks of the surface that pop off as well. So I think doing this again, I'll probably double the amount of that coating and put it on thicker. Probably try to go something like 3/8 of an inch thick. Another comment is that the fenugreek is extremely strong. My bedroom, the spare bedroom, still smells extremely much like this stuff. It's not a bad smell. It's, some people describe it as maple syrup, and it's a little maple syrup, but it's also a little bit more acrid than that. But it is tasty, so be aware that it's extremely potent. But aside from that, it looks good, and I think that I'll probably go through the second pound pretty quick as well, sharing it with friends and the Turkish colleagues I have in the department. Both of them were thrilled with it, so I'll probably pass this around some and then work on a second pass with a thicker surface layer to try to get that right. It's been another 2 weeks since the last video, and I've gone through the second piece of meat. It's quite good. Something that I found is that storing these in plastic seems to be significant. If you're not storing them in plastic, the exterior gets extremely brittle and breaks off. If you store it in plastic, the surface becomes softer. It's easy to get a clean cut with just a knife, so you don't need such a thick coating. I'm still going to try a thicker coating the next time that I make this, and the interior stays firm but tender. So it seems that the storage is important. It also helps considerably with the flavor. It's much mellower after storing in plastic. It could be time as well, because it's sat for an extra 2 weeks. The aroma is much less than it was originally, and the flavor seems to be more homogenized to the meat, and it's not just surface flavoring anymore. So this is kind of getting to the end of the pastırma. I'll let you know as I make the next batch and try experimenting a little more with it. It'll probably be next winter because I want to store it at cooler temperatures. So with that, thank you very much, and I will see you later.